Hello, and welcome to the Chronology of Wealth community. The Cold War wasn't just a clash of ideologies. It was a trillion-dollar power play. Both the US and the Soviet Union weaponized money, credit, and hidden trade networks to control the world. Behind every missile and every political speech was a balance sheet. And behind every declared enemy was an invisible transaction. Remember, this is where money, power, and history collide. And nothing is ever as simple as it looks. When World War II ended, we were told the world split in two. The United States didn't just win the war. It inherited the world's gold. The Bretton Woods Agreement made the dollar the world's reserve currency. This wasn't just economic policy. It was an imperial design. With one treaty, America achieved total control over global liquidity. If a country wanted to rebuild, trade, or borrow, it had to use the dollar. In the East, Stalin built his own fortress, the ruble zone. But even a command economy couldn't command everything. To buy foreign technology, the USSR still needed hard currency. And so began the quiet contradiction of the Cold War, to enemies locked in ideological war, but bound by the very same money. In the late 1940s, the US launched the Marshall Plan, $13 billion for Western Europe. The official story, stopping communism. The hidden purpose, creating dollar dependence. The Soviet Union refused, calling it a capitalist trap. Their economy was built on extraction, not exchange. Yet, trade found a way. In the 1950s, Soviet oil quietly began flowing through Finland, Austria, and Switzerland. It was sold in dollars and rebranded for Western buyers. These neutral countries became middlemen in a shadow economy. Even the intelligence agencies played the same double game. The CIA created offshore accounts to fund covert operations. The KGB funneled rubles through fake trade companies to gain access to Western technology. Money became the one language both sides spoke fluently. By the mid-1960s, Eurodollar markets emerged in London. These offshore dollars became the lubricant of the Cold War economy. Soviet banks quietly used London intermediaries to access credit. The irony: the American banking system, meant to isolate communism, was now indirectly funding it. Declassified records show that by 1973, Soviet entities held billions in Western accounts. US corporations like Pepsi and IBM found ways to trade behind the curtain. Chase Manhattan, led by David Rockefeller, openly praised Soviet stability. The more you trace the money, the more the Cold War looks less like a moral struggle and more like a joint venture. The arms race was a stimulus package in disguise. Trillions were spent on weapons no one dared to use, creating the illusion of infinite growth. By the late 1960s, the Cold War was a business model. But in August 1971, the illusion cracked. When Nixon ended the gold standard, the dollar became a free-floating promise. The US could now print infinite money to finance infinite power. It was suddenly profitable. Almost overnight, petrodollars replaced gold. Through secret negotiations, Washington ensured all oil exports would be priced in dollars. Control the flow of oil. Control the flow of dollars. And you control the flow of life itself. The Soviet Union turned the same resource into its lifeline. In public, they condemned capitalism. In private, they depended on it. Western banks were quietly financing the enemy through intermediaries. The clearer it becomes, ideology was theatre. Money was the script. Why did the Cold War never go nuclear? Because mutual destruction was also financial. Blow up your enemy, and you blow up your creditor. So instead, they exported the destruction to the developing world. Every coup, every civil war, every people's revolution was a transaction. All were funded by someone's spreadsheet. The Cold War was the world's most profitable illusion. And behind it all, the bankers were always one step ahead. They weren't loyal to nations. They were loyal to margins. When the Berlin Wall finally fell, history didn't end. It was monetized. The same oligarchs who stripped state assets in the 1990s had been managing Soviet trade accounts for decades. They were simply revealed. Power never cared about ideology. It cared about liquidity. The next time you see nations clashing, remember, sis, they've been playing the same game since 1945. The only difference is the interface. Back then, it was the Iron Curtain. Today, it's the internet. Because in every age, it's not the flags that matter, it's the flows. History has the answers, and I'll show you where to look. We'll see you in the next chapter.